I am Angus Smokewalker with the Smokewalkers, and we distill small batch frankincense oil. Today we're going to go over our lab notes from our 623 distillation. On 618, I started soaking 8 kilos of black sacred frankincense and 5 gallons of water soaked directly into the copper still. So that was a 5-day soak. On 623 at 8:40 in the morning, we started the still on our 10,000 BTU burner instead of starting it on my 30,000 BTU burner and then transferring it to the stove. We just started it on that 10,000 BTU burner this time. 11:45, I started adding ice to the condenser, and at 11:52, we had our first drops of oil. 2 hours into that process, I noticed there was an issue because I couldn't hear the water boiling inside the still. This was a yellow flag for me that kind of put me on alert. A little bit later, I noticed that the condenser started purging frankincense. So what that told me is there was a miscalculation somewhere in my process. I shut the stove off, I take the still apart, and I noticed that I added too much water to the still. There's a weld line inside the still, and I added above that, which caused the frankincense to foam up into the condenser, creating a cement-like bond, and there was only one more hole in that. And if that would have plugged, it would have started building pressure, and that thing would have popped, spraying molten resin all over the kitchen and myself. I take the still completely apart. I clean it with alcohol, fresh rinse, complete reset. I take a turkey baster and I start soaking off the water out of the still below the top of the still, because that top has oil floating on it. So I don't want to take water from the top because I'll be pulling off the oil as well. At 3:30, we put the still back together and we're back in business. And at 4:30, an hour later, we're starting to pull oil again. At 7:30, I do my first big pull of oil, and I end up with 800 milliliters of oil at that point. And to add, I added 1 more kilo of frankincense inside the still to make up for any lost material that might have came out of the condenser, or when I was ladling off a little bit and then using that turkey baster, any material that was pulled, I wanted to make sure I was replacing it. So at that point, I'm preparing the still. At that 8:30, after I pull that oil off, I'm preparing the still to sleep for the night. This is when I get my mat. I come down here, I pour off the rest of the hydrosol, I pour off the little bit of the top of the oil, and I prepare to sleep on the floor down here.